I would like to acknowledge the Yagara people, the traditional owners of the land on which I reside. I acknowledge their relationship to country and extend my respects to elders of this community, past, present, and future. My name is Rachel, and I come from a military family, so during my childhood I lived and moved to many cities. I was born in Townsville, but have also lived in Toowoomba, Sydney, Canberra, and now Brisbane. Throughout all of these moves, I've never known the names of the Indigenous groups who traditionally resided on this land. I've since learned through this course that in my young life, I've lived on the lands of the Bindal, Burungum, Eora, Ngunnawal, and now the Yagara people. Throughout my school education and my adult life, I've had very limited exposure to Indigenous Australian culture, history, or traditions. The small amount of education we did receive, I can now see were inaccurate explanations of Indigenous history and current stereotypes of Indigenous people. An example of this was our education surrounding Australia Day. In primary school, the first week of school every year was dedicated to learning how Captain Cook and the First Fleet courageously made their way to Australia for the chance of a new life, and were made to believe that Indigenous Australians allowed the English to do so without any struggle. I admit that I was shocked to learn in this course that many major battles occurred, many of which were won by Indigenous Australian groups. This has made me doubt everything I've been taught about Indigenous Australian history, and I feel strongly that our education system needs to teach students a more accurate portrayal of our country's history. However, I have since asked my 11-year-old sister what she has been taught about this period of invasion, and I was saddened to hear that it seems though the curriculum has not changed since I was her age. When I was in grade 9 in 2008, our school watched the former Prime Minister Kevin Rudd make the apology speech. Thereafter, each school assembly was made to recite an acknowledgement of country, which was embedded with white guilt, but we were never informed of what this acknowledgement was or why we were apologising. It was forced on the students without explanation, which caused resentment among us. I've now learnt on the importance of this acknowledgement and the purpose of the apology speech, and I feel as though if our school had taken the time to educate the students of this important and not written the acknowledgement from a place of guilt, we would have embraced it more fully. My lack of exposure to Indigenous culture through my childhood has not really changed coming into adulthood. For this assignment, I have tried to find evidence of Indigenous culture or history in my local area and environment, but I was disappointed in the lack of acknowledgement for the Yagara people. Even when I returned to Toowoomba recently for the Languages and Culture Festival, there were countless stalls for international cultures, but none for the local Indigenous community. While I don't believe there is any explicit negative intent of this on the part of the local councils, it does show the broader problem that I have been learning this semester. That our governments, therefore in turn the Australian people, do not want to acknowledge the reality of what happened during invasion and colonisation, so Indigenous Australia is hidden from the public sphere in order not to stir up guilt or shame.